Hello and welcome to the channel. We are going to be talking today about this guy here, which is the Garmin Tactix Delta Solar, which is a fitness watch designed for military use, but also I use it whilst airsofting and generally most other things when I'm doing training and so on. But before we sort of get into the detail of this guy, if you like today's video, please hit the like button. And if you like our content, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell notification icon so you can be notified when we put out new content. So we're going to be talking about this guy here. This is the Garmin Tactix Delta Solar. It's one of the latest of the Fenix family of fitness trackers from Garmin. It is a watch with a more military focus. It's essentially the tactical version of that Fenix family, hence the Tactix name. Now, we're going to be looking at this not from a military standpoint, but from a more airsofter focused standpoint. The Garmin Tactix Delta is potentially useful for an airsofter, as is most other fitness trackers. It can be useful for you in a number of ways. I purchased this because I kind of liked the idea of this watch. I happened to get it at a discount through the Black Friday sales at the end of last year. So I've had this now for about 3 months and I've been using it on a regular basis. I use it personally when keeping fit. So when I am riding my bike or walking or essentially doing a skirmish or Milsim, I like to track my activities, and I've done this for a long time, especially when I've been riding now for something like 7 or 8 years on a regular basis. I'm always tracking my rides. When I've been doing airsoft, every airsoft event I do, I will track that event. Previously, I would use a Polar Vantage M to do that. However, that had developed some faults, so I was looking for a new fitness tracker. And this is why I chose this guy. Now, as an airsofter who takes part in Milsims, having a reliable GPS can prove handy. I've used the Fortrex 601 as a GPS device in Milsims. This is essentially a GPS device as well, so it has all the mapping and everything else that the Garmin Fortrex has. So it's something that basically I've chosen to use for that purpose as well. So it's essentially becoming one of these things that I'm using. Now this is, this is the tactical version of the Fenix family. Now, just to basically explain, this is there are 3 versions of this. This is the solar version, so this actually has a little solar panel behind the screen so it can charge itself. There are 2 other versions. There's a slightly smaller version, and there's the non-solar version of this size. So it is a tactical version that has certain features that are specific to it. Now, I do have this guy here, which is the Garmin Fenix 6X Pro. This is basically the non-tactical version of this guy, except for this one doesn't have the solar. But essentially, this is a much more affordable item compared to this. We'll go into that in a little bit more in a little while. But essentially, this is £900 worth of watch. So it's well out of the reach of most airsofters' pockets. So if you do want to watch, a good sort of tactical-ish watch, I'd actually probably recommend you get the Fenix 6X Pro because that is it has pretty much everything this does except for the few tactical things that this has. Now let's go into a bit more of the detail and some of the features of this watch. So it has multiple what we call GNSS support. So it supports GPS, GLONASS and Galileo. So it has all of the major satellite navigation systems in there, so it can basically get a signal and a position pretty much anywhere. So it's pretty decent for that phone. It's got a ton of sensors. It can do elevation through barometer. It has a barometer to monitor weather. It's got a 3-axis electronic compass. It has an amazing battery life. The battery life on this is, when you fully charge this, it will do 60 hours with GPS on. It will do 21 days when you're not using the GPS, and it has an expedition mode which has the ability to sort of put that battery life over 100 days. It's insane. So basically that expedition mode is great. What it does is it does a low power GPS for reference points. It doesn't use GPS all the time. And the great thing about the solar version is it does add to the life if you get it in direct sunlight. It's been winter here and it's not been particularly great on the sun front, but in the summer I expect this to be able to top itself up a little bit during the time I'm wearing it outdoors, because if you get some direct sunlight, it will charge it. When I first got this, and I will actually mention this a little bit later, I had a problem with the charging cable, and I actually did use the solar aspect of this to charge this up with one of my studio lights for filming. So I did actually manage to add about 2 days worth of charge onto this by basically just using solar power alone. So that basically, whilst I waited for a replacement cable to come. So it has a ton of features. I mean, it has features that I'm probably never going to use. It has a whole thing around golf courses and golf course viewing. It has climbing features. It has turn-by-turn navigation. It has trip routing. I say it has this solar battery. So it has this 21 days of battery life when you're not using the GPS and everything else. 24 days if you top that up with solar. And in GPS mode, you'll get a really good extra chunk of time in there when you're using GPS. It's a rugged build. It's essentially a mil-spec design. So it's well built. I've kind of bashed this about. I actually fell off my bike whilst wearing it, and it didn't take a scratch at all. My arm did take a lot of damage, but my watch didn't. It has a bunch of apps preloaded. You can change the faces. There's the whole Garmin Connect ecosystem enables you to install new watch faces on here, and I'm actually running a custom watch face on here at the moment. You can run various different apps on there. You have mountain biking sort of profiles. You've got tons of sport profiles. It can survive in water, all kinds of stuff. It has a ton of features, and literally there are so many to sort of talk about. It has a pulse O2 sensor, sorry. It enables you to sort of monitor your heart rate. It can check and track your respiration rates. It has a number of features which link in with the app, which is what it's called its body battery feature, and monitors sort of stress levels through sleep tracking and so on. It also has a Garmin Pay, which is a contactless payment system that you can use with this. It also has a music app system as well, so you can load this up with music, and it has, I think it was 32 gigabytes of memory, which you can store music onto it, so if you want to listen to some music. And it can receive notifications from your smart devices, like your iPhone or your Android device. So it has a ton of features. Now, there are some features that essentially, and all these features I just mentioned actually are in this guy here. So those are basically in this Fenix 6X. So, you know, essentially like for like, they're pretty much the same at this point. They diverge a little bit at this point. So this has some tactical features, some features which are only in the Tactix line. And And essentially one of the features is what we call night vision capability. Now the idea with the night vision capability is it changes the dial. So A, it doesn't light up, and B, it has a better visibility under night vision. So you can see it under night vision a little bit better, clearer, without drowning out the MV because of the light. It has something called stealth mode, which basically stops storing GPS information and tracking information on the device, disables wireless connectivity and communications. So it's basically kind of makes it a dumb device. So it's pretty good if you are in the military and you don't want anyone tracking where you've been. You turn that feature on. It has something called a kill switch. So the kill switch enables you to wipe the device of all the user information and everything about the device. So essentially quickly set it to factory. It has something called jump master mode, which is designed for those who jump out of planes. It follows military guidelines, but essentially the idea here is you can jump out, it can do your sort of release points and so on, and put those in. It has dual position formats for what they call the tactical activity mode, which I'll talk about that in a little bit. But essentially when it does that, it has different ways of showing the grid position. So it has MGRS and UTM for the position indicators. And you can do projected waypoints and so on, which are used for navigation, which are essentially a feature only of the tactical line. So there's a ton of stuff packed into this watch. And there is a price tag. I say it is very expensive and outside of the reach of most airsofters. So effectively you are kind of really getting a lot of stuff in this watch. And it is essentially a fitness tracker on a bit of steroids. So I've had this, as I say, now for about 3 months. I've used it as a daily driver and fitness tracker. I have got used to the size. I've pretty much always been using smaller watches. The face on this is huge. It's really quite thick. I can't remember the dimensions of this, but it is a very big watch face. As you can see, my arms are quite thin, and on my arms it is quite large. So it is a big watch. It does get a little bit used to, and it is quite heavy. It's about 90 grams or so. So it does have a bit of heft to it on the wrist. As I mentioned, basically this has basically replaced my Polar Vantage M, which was relatively decent as a fitness tracker. It had an okay battery life at about 24 hours, but relatively recently it started to basically lose that battery sort of longevity, and was dropping down to 10 hours of battery life with the GPS turned on. So I got this guy, and the battery life on this has been phenomenal. I've used it for a bunch of things, mainly activity tracking. I've used it for essentially bike rides, walks, and I'm going to show some stuff out of the app in a little while, just to kind of show you an idea of what that sort of looks like. It also has a ton of activity presets you can load, from swimming, running. I use it for indoor cycling, outdoor cycling, hikes essentially, which I generally often use which I used on the Polar actually for Airsoft, but this does have what they call a tactical activity, which is basically the same as a walk or a hike, but gives you access to the dual position screen with the MGRS track and the UTM information on there as well. That tactical activity, as I say, it's just some different screens, but it tracks all the same stats. It does distance, it does heart rate, it does heart rate zones. It has GPS map for the outdoor activities, and essentially it just got so much data in there. There is an iPhone app which I used to sync to data. There's also an Android version of the app. It is the Garmin Connect app, and there's essentially a Garmin ecosystem of apps that enable you to manage the device. So there's a Garmin Connect Q or Connect IQ application, which enables you to get at their store, so you can install watch faces, apps, and all kinds of other stuff for the device. But essentially, you do a lot of the stuff through that thing. So the one thing to know about the Garmin Tactix in the Fenix line is the ability to link to other sensors. So I can use this with my heart rate monitor and my cycle sensors, so my cadence sensor, my speed sensor, and my power meter. I also use it with my indoor trainer, so it can link to that to actually read the data off that. It can do that via Bluetooth and ANT+. So either of those two sort of technologies, it will basically connect to those sensors. The actual app and sort of ecosystem around this will use the data to do various things and give you some performance insights. So if you're training, you can get some performance insights around your training. You can get some insights around how your body is and how you're recovering, or how your stress levels are based on how much sleep you get. If you wear this when you're sleeping, you get full sleep tracking sort of stuff in there as well. It does pulse ox monitoring, which is pretty handy. It does a bunch of stuff whilst you're sleeping. So the pulse ox measurement can measure how your breathing is when you're sleeping. It can also monitor your heart rate and all that kind of stuff as well. So it's the more sensors you turn on, the bigger the hit in the battery life. I kind of have a sweet spot on this. It lasts about 15 days for me when running it with some training, some sensors, and so on. It kind of lasts about 15 days. I think the longest I've had this last is 20 days when I've not really been doing much. But essentially, I mean, this guy, and we just sort of kind of look at this. We've got 55% battery life at the moment. If we just go into, sorry, I'm trying to get to the right menu here. So we have this screen here. This is kind of one of the main screens where you can go through and look at some of the data points. You move up and down using the buttons on the side. And essentially what we've got here is a whole raft of data. So we have the solar intensity, which is basically telling you how much data, how much sunlight it's got. We've got very little here at the moment because it's winter. We've got the weather. We've got sunrise and sunset information. We have the compass. We have our heart rates. We have status for training and activities, step counter, some general health stats, pulse ox data, and so on. We've got a calendar element and so on, music, respiration rate, and all these pieces of information, and temperature and so on. We go into one of these, you can sort of see, let's pick one of these. So the last activity, you get a little sort of highlight of the activity, how long you were active for, your pace, how far you went, and so on. You can scroll through these screens and see where you've been, and so on, all the other activities you may have done. You can basically go into that activity and dig a bit deeper, and you can sort of look at your various things like your training effect, so what the effect of that activity was on you, various different stats. You can go in and so go back, go look at our heart rate, for example, look at our heart rate zones. We can go and look at things like laps, the map, elevation information, and so on. You've got so much data on the watch you can pull out and get from the watch. You've got things like your generic heart rate zone information gives you your different zones, so which activity zone you were in. when you did an activity. You've got your compass, which is, sorry, went out. So you've got your compass, it's got a barometer and an altimeter in there, so you can see where you are. You've got also things like your sunset information, and you know the sunrise and sunset, twilight, which can be quite useful, especially for an airsofter. If you're doing a Milsim, you've got that information when you can go into nods, at what point it's going to be sunset and the twilight period before dark, and so on. So how useful that is to you it can vary. Obviously, you've got your weather stats and so on. It's pretty in-depth information. Kind of look at that. Activity-wise, you have a ton of activities you can preload. So, for instance, you can do walks. You've got the expedition mode, bike, hike, which is essentially walking just with a slightly different emphasis. Outdoor. The indoor bike turns off things like the GPS. Certain features can be turned on and off in each of these. So they generally will collect all the information, but you can turn off different screens, turn off things like the use of GPS if you're doing indoor activities and the like. You can do maps, you can do waypoint runs, so you can preload with a route and a waypoint and do information from there. You can do essentially track you, which is essentially you're moving and it's tracking where you are. The jump master mode is obviously this jump master feature that you can use if you are outside and doing parachute jumps. The tactical mode is this almost tactical. It's a tactical version of the hike. So if we go into there, we should be able to go and look at some of the different screens. So you've got the, and I use this for airsoft. This is the one I use whilst airsofting. So I've got the time, the day, your pace, how long the activity you're going for, your elevation. It's one of the screens. You've got your map. You've got your location information. So this is the UTM information, and then we've got the MGRS information. So if you're doing a Milsim, if you are using MGRS as your map reference information, then you have that here. But also you've got your GPS coordinates, your more standard GPS coordinates that you might use. We've got a heart rate monitoring so you can see how you're doing, and it also has your heart rate on there as well. And also, obviously, you've got your time of day as a big sort of panel. But each of these modes have very different sort of screens. So if we go and look, for example, at the bike one, we've got essentially a different set of screens. We're just telling us it's looking for sensors at the moment, but you've got a distance, your speed, a timer, and I think which is hidden at the top, your heart rate. We also have heart rates, lap distance, lap speed, lap times if you're running laps on something. We've got a time of day again, and then we've also got a map in there as well. So you've got a whole bunch of information and different screens that can be configured for each activity and so on. So it's really, really useful for that. Now I'm going to show you the app and a sample activity from the app, or a sample day actually. So let's just bring that up. So this is the iPhone app. And what we're looking at is a particular day. I did an activity in that day, and this is the kind of detail you get. So we've got our step information. So it's kind of basic stuff. You've got your timelines. You can do your thing by the day, the week, and so on. However many things, tell you how many calories you did in that day, and so on. You've got your heart rate information for that day, so you can see the heart rate track for that particular day. We have this thing, and I mentioned this is the body, battery, and stress levels. So this uses your information to see how stressed you were, how much activity impacted your body, and so on, how much rest impacts. And so the higher the number, the more stressed you are when it's from its measurements. So effectively, This can be useful for recovery tracking and figuring out how to recover after activity. And body batteries are along those lines as well. So effectively, this again is just saying the kind of information it tracks on a day to show you how much energy you've got for that day. But it takes into account all of the activities as well. So this is one of the activities I did on that day. This was a walking activity. As you can see, it's got a map which has all my tracking information for that activity. You've got how long you were active for, your calories burnt, the distance. You've got the device. You can go into some of these pieces of information and pull out extra stats, such as your pace, your moving speed, the elapsed time, the various benefits and so on, the temperature it was that it measured and so on. When you go into the map, you've got a very detailed map view. You can actually have different maps depending on the type of activity to show different information. It's your standard sort of map where you've got your hybrid satellite and whatever, but you can overlay data. So you can overlay your pace, you can overlay your heart rate, so you can see how your heart rate was active during a particular part of your activity. You can do your elevation. So for example, if you're doing a bike ride and you're going up hills, or you're climbing in hilly terrain, you can see the various levels of elevation involved, and then you can map that to things like a pace and so on. So you've got a whole raft of information, and this app basically is that hub for all that data and pulls everything together. You get also things like it records the weather stats for that activity and so on. And you can share this information. So if you use any other fitness tracking software like Strava and the like, you can push that information out. If you if you look at one of the activities, for example, if I look at the steps, for example, I think it's the steps, or is it you can actually sort of do full page map views of the data as well, where you just sort of flip the phone to the side and get a big old map. So you've got a ton of activities, and you can see this has just recorded all the activities over the different days and the like that you've got, and you can gamify to a certain extent some of these things. So this is the Tactix Delta. It's a great device. I've been using this now, for about 3 months, and I've got used to wearing it, and it's been a really nice device to use. Now, in terms of what you get in the box, and I should have really covered this earlier, you get the watch, obviously, and it comes with a couple of accessories. So you get the watch, and this catches the default strap, I think. That's one of the differences between this and the other Fenix devices, is you get this fabric watch strap, and I prefer this over the plastic ones. You do get in the box these kind of plastic watch straps, but one of the things I find with these is they do perish over time, and I just find that they, for me anyway, they get very sweaty when doing heavy activity, and it kind of gets a bit itchy and difficult to use. So I don't like these. They have a standard connecting system, which basically means you can, which is a sort of, it has a little clip here that enables you to take these on and off, and you can buy alternative straps. You can get leather ones, plastic ones, different coloured straps and so on. So you do have a bunch of options on that front. So the watch, obviously you get the watch with that strap. You get the replacement strap. You get a cable. This is the Garmin cable. Now this cable is the one that came with the device, and this was actually damaged. One of the things I found in this, there are some tiny little pins in this connector, and one of the pins on this had broken, so this would not charge my watch when I got it. It's the only gripe I've really had. I had to go out and buy a replacement cable. Luckily, it's a pretty common watch, or essentially Garmin uses connector on all their watches, so it's pretty common sort of connector, so you can easily buy these on Amazon. I bought these, I think, on Amazon for like £10, and I think there was 3 cables or 2 cables in this, and essentially, yeah, really easy to use. Now the cool thing about this pack as well, this actually came with these little protective covers. So this is another little gripe I have. When you get the watch, this is the charging port on the back. This does not have a cover. So when you get this, it comes without a cover. This pack that I bought actually has a little bunch of little covers, little rubber covers, which you can just drop in there. And they come in different colours, but I've gone with the black one. And it just covers that up, stops dust, sweat, skin, all that crap that you get on the back of a watch getting in there. On the back of the watch, I say the construction of this is brilliant. It's really hard wearing and very tough. So the back is cleaned up nicely, although it does get a little dirty. It's really easy to clean. It's a metal back. It's got a very good sensor on there. I've not had any issues with the sensor on the heart rate on the back of this at all. Not being able to pick anything up. And I've got pretty hairy arms. And on some watches in the past, I've had issues when it can't pick up stuff through the hair. And I also have quite pale skin as well. So it sometimes has a little bit of an issue with that. But this sensor has been great, pretty accurate. When I've done activities like bike rides and so on, I have my heart rate sensor, which I have around my chest, and the 2 sets of heart rate information have been pretty much the same, so the data quality is pretty good. So all in all, it's a pretty good piece of kit, and I've enjoyed it. I've used it. I haven't, obviously, with the current situation, we have actual airsoft events have been few and far between. So I have not been able to use it at a Milsim as yet. When I next get one, I will be using it. But essentially, I've used it a skirmish, and it has been great. I say I've fallen with it, and it's not damaged it. One of the things I found with, and I've hit the screen on this, and it's not had an issue. But this is, generally speaking, it's a really hard wearing watch, and I've really enjoyed using it so far. Would I recommend you buy this? Probably not. I would actually recommend you get one of the Fenix normals, this guy here. It has pretty much everything this has, except for those tactical features that I kind of mentioned earlier on. This one does come with this rubber strap, so they don't come with the fabric strap, but you can buy the fabric strap. So I think the straps are like 20 to 30 pounds. So yeah, just if you don't like the rubber strap, get the fabric strap. But this is functionally identical to this. However, it is missing those kind of tactical features. Now, there is one feature that the Tactix line does have, and I don't have that feature enabled because it is a pay for at the time of purchase feature, and there is a ballistic computer version for the Tactix series that you can get, and I'm not sure exactly what it offers, but this is one of the kind of options you've got. So it is it is a really nice watch. It is really good and robust for airsofters. If you can afford to buy one. It is a nice watch and you won't regret it. If you are short of money, go for one of the Fenix line. One of the things I found, and I got this at the same time actually, because I was going to try them both out, but I've kind of just settled on this one, is you can pick these up relatively cheaply. So this was £900, this was £450. There are more options for the Fenix line than the 3 that you get with this guy. With this guy, you've only got 3 options. This one, I think there's 6 different options for the Fenix. They all have different sort of sizes, so they're different actual physical size, but they also have some featured, they all have the same features, but the main difference is the physical size and battery. There are solar versions of the Fenix line as well, but in essence, functionally the same. You just get a few more options and these cost a lot less. It's probably not as essentially bulletproof as this guy. This is essentially built to a mil spec standard, so it can take a good pounding. These guys are designed for, you know, your runners, your hill climbers, your cyclists, and so on. They're not designed to go to war zones, whereas these are. But this will do for an airsoft event. You can get screen protectors that you can put on the front of the screen of these and so on. But in essence, I think if you've got one of these for airsoft use for tracking your activities, then you won't regret the Fenix line. It's a really good watch. It's got a lot of features. You can do a lot of stuff with it, especially if you're training and the like. So all in all, I say this is a really nice product. I enjoy using it. It's enabled me to track activities more reliably than I could in the past with my old Polar watch. I can track more. I can wear it for longer. I don't have to charge it as often. I was almost having to charge the Polar watch like the old first edition Apple watches, where you had to charge them overnight. This one is 54% battery life now, after been playing with it for a bit, but it started off at 55. It has 8 days left on that battery, and I probably won't charge, and I'll probably do a couple of activities, we'll knock it down by a little bit, and so I'll probably have to charge it in about 4 or 5 days time, once I've sort of, you know, been wearing this and using it for activity tracking over the next few days. But even then, it will probably still have maybe 15% battery life on it when I charge it again. So with that, thank you for watching. I hope you found this review useful. I say it is a really nice watch, and if you do fancy getting one, I recommend you go for the Fenix line and pick one of these up. If you really want to get the Tactix line, get the Tactix line. Don't get the older versions. Definitely go for the Delta, because the Delta I think is a bit more robust. It has more battery life on it. Has the solar option. The solar option is one of those nice to have. I just happened to get a good deal on this, so that's why I went with the solar line. But I would have probably got the non-solar version if I hadn't got the deal on the solar version. But the solar does give you that kind of bit extra whilst you're doing, say, Milsim and so on. If you're doing a 2-day Milsim, the 60-hour battery life on this will be great. You know, it'll easily handle a single day Milsim, but a weekend away with the tracking on for a Milsim, this will be fine. So all in all, a great little watch, definitely recommended. And also it's sort of essentially sister watch the Fenix family, the 6X, it's the 6X Pro, the 6 Pro, I think it's the 6S Pro, and then there's like a non-Pro version of all of those, and essentially the S, you get solar and so on, all those options as well. So definitely worth looking into if you need a fitness tracker. So if you found today's video useful, please hit the like button, and please remember to subscribe. But with that, I'm going to leave you there. Thank you for watching, and hope you found this useful. Have a great day and see you guys next time.